Click the bell icon to get latest videos from Ekeeda.
Hello friends, we'll be learning about rectification of errors, their meaning, their definition. We'll have certain gist of what kind of errors we have, how do we rectify them, and what is the effect of rectification on the statements that has been already prepared. So let's go ahead and find out that thing. So, when we spoke out rectification of errors, that means we ideally spoke about the trial balance errors rectification. So as we have learned in an earlier video, the trial balance has to be completely flawless so that once this specific trial balance is provided for the user information, when the same information has been provided in terms of statements of profit and loss account, balance sheet, which is based on the preparation of trial balance itself. Now, if the trial balance is error-free, then in such cases, this information will be completely provided for statement of preparation, that is statement of accounts like profit and loss account and balance sheet. If this information is flawless, the users, that is the external and the internal users, will have ease of making decisions, the internal being making policy decisions, changing the existing policy if required, and the external being when it comes to investment, lenders and suppliers and creditors. All this information has to be completely flawless so that it can ease up the process of any internal and external user. Now, when we talk about rectification of errors is nothing but errors that has been detected in the first case, that is preparation of journal entries or preparation of ledger book or any subsidiary book. And after that, if we have found out any errors while preparation of trial balance, rectifying these errors is the first most priority thing that any chartered accountant has to do when it comes to preparation of flawless statements of accounts. So, when you talk about rectification of errors, there are certain common errors that we go through. But before that, let's just go ahead and see out certain definitions or certain lines that we have mentioned here. So as you can see on the paper, we have mentioned certain lines for you. Let's go ahead and check that. As it states, trial balance should tally. That means the debit and the credit side of your trial balance should be equal. This is the most important thing because unless and until this thing is not done, that means there is certain error which you have to rectify. Once that is rectified, only then this trial balance can be used or can be sent out for preparation of statement of accounts like profit and loss account and balance sheet. Unless and until this is not done, this specific trial balance won't be used at all. However, as we have mentioned here, the trial balance agreement doesn't constitute any kind of absolute agreement or any kind of absolute accuracy of the statements being absolutely true. So when we talk about accuracy, which is the first most important reason why any statement is prepared, this trial balance won't give out complete accuracy. So to understand how this doesn't happen, we have discussed about certain errors, or probably we have discussed about what kind of errors we can face when it comes to which are not getting detected in the first place. Like a complete omission of transaction won't be detected at all. However, this will be detected when we are about to prepare the profit and loss account or the balance sheet. Hence, these errors which are not mentioned in the trial balance produce or gives out that this specific trial balance is not completely accurate. So, to ensure that the trial balance are accurate, we need to ensure that all the transactions which have been listed have been actually listed in the specific journal, in the specific ledger with the correct amount and not any wrong name. Hence, whatever errors which can be rectified in the first stage without any mistakes have to be followed through. Let's go on to the next point. So as I've mentioned that the trial balance cannot be accurate all the time. The reason being, if the entry-level transaction itself are incorrect or have been wrongly posted, or if the wrong amount has been credited, debited into the wrong account, then in such cases, trial balance won't tally at all. Hence, all these rectifications have to be done in the subsidiary books or in the journal entries, which is the first level of recording any specific transaction. If you remember, we have recording of transactions, that is recording and summarizing being one of the important steps when it comes to the 7-step process of accountancy. So, when you talk about recording and summarizing transactions, your transaction should be perfectly recorded when it comes to journal entries, ledger postings, or any subsidiary book creation. So, if the entry level is correct, the trial balance will show accurate to the more specific accurate balances. However, if the entry level is incorrect, the reasons are going to be completely based on the basis of preparation of accounting statements, which are like journal entries and ledger. So if these are incorrect, the trial balance will show incorrect balance and vice versa. Let's go on to the next statement and see what are the common errors we have when it comes to preparation of trial balance and when it comes to rectification of errors in journal, ledger and trial balance. Let's go ahead and see that. If you can see, there are certain errors, certain common errors that we face every now and then when it comes to preparation of accounting statements. Let's go through it one by one and try to understand how these transactions or how these errors affect the preparation of statement of accounts, that is profit and loss account, balance sheet, trial balance, journals and ledgers, etc. Let's go ahead with the first one. So, totaling of debit and credit. When it comes to trial balance, if you have made any error when it comes to totaling of debit account or totaling of credit account, there is going to be an error when it comes to preparation of trial balance. This debit and credit total can refer to any kind of ledger book accounting balancing, subsidiary book accounting balancing, or posting of journal entries itself. Let's take an example. If in the journal entries, if you have mentioned that you have purchased goods worth rupees 5,000, however, the journal entry has been mentioned only for 500 rupees. That means there is a massive difference of 4,500 there, and hence this amount will be shown in the balance sheet or in the profit and loss account, which will be understated. So if there is a wrong totaling or wrong amount that has been posted, this will be one of the examples. So if you have to take, if your account or your purchase accounts, let's take an example of purchase account which has a balance of 50,000. However, due to wrong totaling, you have mentioned it as 30,000 or 20,000. Hence, this amount will be shown as understated when it comes to preparation of trial balance accounting or maybe preparation of profit and loss account. So, the first reason being wrong totaling or probably the totaling errors that we make when it comes to debit side totaling or credit side totaling. Now, let's go on to the next example or the next common error. Totaling of subsidiary books. When you have ledger accounts, when you have ledger balances, and if you're preparing subsidiary books of accounts, if at all you have mentioned wrong totals in those subsidiary books, then in certain cases, yes, you will be finding errors when it comes to preparation of trial balance. So as much as it is important to have complete error-free debit and credit columns, it is very much important that the subsidiary book totals are also correct so as to prepare error-free trial balance and other statement of accounts. Let's go on to the next one. So when we spoke about the third error, probably the third common thing, we'll have this one. Posting of total subsidiary books. So the earlier one that we heard about or we spoke about is posting of wrong totals. Here, when we talk about posting of total subsidiary book accounts, so the complete balance that we transfer to the trial balance account, if at all there are any errors while transferring from subsidiary book of accounts to trial balance, then that error can be classified as a rectification which is requested there, or a rectification which is utmost necessary to prepare error-free trial balance and send further for preparation of profit and loss account. So when we talk about totaling errors are mostly related to complete wrong totaling into certain accounts or wrong total being transferred to certain accounts. Hence, be sure that the totals are correct because we'll be dealing with numbers. Hence, there are a lot of numbers that we'll be dealing with and the total has to be accurate. Let's go on to the fourth error or the fourth common error that we find out. Errors that are found in showing accounts into the wrong amount, wrong side, or the wrong totaling has been done into the account. So you might have different accounts that you will be dealing with every now and then when you prepare accountancy statements. You might have different numbers to deal with. When it comes to dealing with specific numbers or specific accounts, the total has to be correct. The journal entries has to be passed to the correct account and not to the wrong account. The debit account should be debited. The credit account should be credited. You'll have types of accounts and we'll be studying about that in the next lecture. However, when we talk about types of accounts, correct debit has to be made to the debit account, correct credit has to be made to the credit account, and correct amount should be debited or credited as per the request of the account or as per the demand of the transaction. If there is a debit transaction, if you have credited that transaction, there will be an error. If the debit and credit has been made proper, however, the amount has been made erroneously or probably posted erroneously in there, then there is going to be an error. In cases where the totaling has been correctly done, however, the moving forward balance has been taken incorrectly, then in such cases, yes, there will be another totaling error which will be in the forwards account or probably in the opening side of the accounts for the next year. So when you talk about error-free rectification, this rectification has to be made for the smallest thing, that is the totaling, for the smallest error, that is posting the entries in the correct account, and the first most thing, passing the correct entries. Let's go on to the next example. Omission of account and trial balance. Now, there are two kinds of omission that you can do: complete and partial. So when you talk about complete omission, you have no effect of rectification here because the transaction itself has been omitted. So if you have any kind of complete omission, it won't be reflected in your trial balance, or it won't show any effect in your trial balance. The reason being, the specific transaction has been completely omitted. However, if there is a partial omission, that means one entry has been passed, or one side of the entry has been passed and the second entry hasn't been passed at all, or probably one side of the total has been mentioned but the other side was completely omitted or missed out. In such cases, there will be a difference between totaling, there will be a difference between the debit side and the credit side, and you need to figure out which transaction or which journal entry has been omitted from recording. So this is the rectification that we'll be doing. Let's go on to the next example here. Calculation of ledger balances. When we talk about total balance that is supposed to be carried forward or brought down, if at all there is an error while calculating the total balance, that is the total ledger balance, when it comes to the wrong totaling or wrong amount being calculated here, then there will be error while we come about posting the same transaction to the ledger balances, or when the ledger balances has been posted to the trial balance. So when it come about preparation of trial balance, you need to understand that this specific trial balance has to be error free, and to make sure that happens, the ledger balances should have correct calculation. Not just ledger balance, it will also reflect on the trial balance entries, it will be also reflecting on the journal entries. So make sure the accounts are debited to the correct debit account. The accounts which are supposed to be credited are credited correctly with the credit amount and not with the debit amount. Make sure all these transaction changes are done. When you talk about specific journal entries, they have to be passed on correctly. Now let's go on to the next example here. Errors in posting journal entries. This is the most common error that we face every now and then. If a debit transaction has to be debited and if it is credited erroneously, that means the journal entry posting has been done in a wrong way. If at all the sales were supposed to be credited but you have debited those sales instead of the sale transaction, then there is a wrong posting or a wrong journal entry that has been passed. So to ensure that the transactions are correctly recorded, the journal entries should be passed according to the three golden rules, that is the personal account, nominal account and real account. We'll be studying more about them in our next lecture. However, when it comes to specifications or specifically mentioning the journal entries, these three accounts will help you classify what kind of journal entries they are. So if your journal entries are correctly placed with the right amount there, you won't find any difficulties in carrying forward that balances to the ledger thing and subsidiary books of accounts. Hence, make sure this error is skipped all the time. Wrong recording in journal entries. So when we spoke about wrong posting of journal entries, that meant the journal entries have been correctly posted in the wrong account. However, when we talk about wrong journal entries itself, that means the transaction talks about sale, however, you have mentioned about purchases. If the transaction is talking about sales, you have mentioned about sales written. If the transaction is talking about expenses, that means you have mentioned a transaction of income. If such errors occur to you, that means there has been a transactional error or the journal entry posting error has been done here. To rectify this, we'll have to pass certain entries which will reverse the exact entry. In such cases, once that is done, this specified rectified entry will go into the books of account and the rectification will be done there. That will have a flawless ledger balance which will be carried forward to trial balance, and after that statement of accounts, that is profit and loss account, and balance sheet will be correctly formed. Now let's go on to the last example or the last common error that we find out. Wrong name, wrong account or wrong amount. As we rightly said, You purchased something from Mr. X. However, you have mentioned that thing in Mr. Y's account. You have mentioned Mr. X capital in Mr. Y's account. You have mentioned Z's expenses in Y's account. When you talk about all these errors, this error talks about wrong account being debited or credited. Wrong amount has been debited into the correct amount, or wrong account has been credited with the wrong amount or the correct amount. Any case or any rectification that needs here will rectify the basic entries or the basic journal transactions. So to rectify these things, you have to mention the correct amount. The difference that has been mentioned here or the difference that you occur to find out have to be classified or has to be further adjusted against any of the suspense accounts that will be creating in near future. So these are the common errors when we talk about rectification of error chapter. So when we talk about rectification of errors, these are just the common examples. There will be a lot of examples that we'll be going through when we go further with the sums and the practice material. However, just to give you a brief idea about how rectification of errors is handled, these are certain common errors, and this was the definition and meaning of rectification of errors. That's it all for the day. Thank you for watching Ekeeda. Keep subscribing to Ekeeda.